The Knights Templar, History and Legend. Who were the Knights Templar really? And how did they go from being a small group of protectors of pilgrims to a powerful military and financial order? What were the factors that contributed to their rise and the support they received from the church and the European nobility? What role did they play in the Crusades, and how did they manage to spread rapidly throughout the Holy Land in Europe? Why, after the fall of Jerusalem and the Christian possessions in the East, did the Templars begin to lose power and purpose? And above all, what motivated King Philip the Fair to undertake such a brutal persecution against them? And how did the tragic end of the order come about with its dissolution and the death of its last Grand Master? Before we start, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay updated with our latest content. Stay tuned to the end of the video as we tell you the full story of the Order of the Knights Templar. The Order of the Knights Templar was one of the most famous military orders of the Middle Ages, with a history full of mysticism, power, and a tragic end. It was founded shortly after the First Crusade, at a time when European Christians were beginning to settle in the Holy Land and disappeared abruptly in the 14th century. The official name of the Order of the Knights Templar was the Order of the Poor Knights of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, Pauperis Commilitones Christi Templiques Salomonici in Latin. The Order of the Knights Templar was founded in 1119, about 20 years after European Crusaders took Jerusalem in the First Crusade. At that time, the Holy Land had become a place of great spiritual value for Christians who wished to make pilgrimages to Jerusalem to visit the holy sites. However, the journey was not safe. The routes to the Holy Land were fraught with danger, especially from attacks by bandits and local militias who looted and, in some cases, murdered the pilgrims. The protection of these travelers became a priority, and thus the idea of creating an order of knights dedicated exclusively to defending them arose. The French knight Hugo de Payens, along with 8 other knights, had the vision of forming a small group committed to protecting pilgrims and securing the routes to Jerusalem, inspired by the Order of the Knights Hospitaller, officially called the Order of St. John of Jerusalem, which was already in existence and was dedicated to the care and assistance of pilgrims and the wounded, especially in its hospital in Jerusalem. Hugo became the first Grand Master of the Order, and his companions, all nobles of modest origins, were the first Templars. The small order adopted an austere lifestyle, and its members lived in voluntary poverty. They renounced material possessions, and their vows included chastity and strict obedience, following the model of a monastic order. As a sign of their humility and lack of resources, they adopted a simple but symbolic symbol: 2 knights sharing a single horse, which represented both their poverty and their brotherhood. The early Templars did not have large estates or castles. In fact, they stayed in the ancient Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem, from which they took the name Templars. Although their cause was noble, the Templars did not receive immediate support. It was thanks to their dedication and sacrifice that over time they began to win the sympathy of the European nobility and clergy, who saw in them an important force to protect the Holy Land and Christianity. Official recognition came in 1129, when the Catholic Church approved the order at the Council of Troyes. This event was pivotal for the Templars, as it gave them the legitimacy and support they needed to expand and grow. Thanks to this approval, they began to receive donations of land, money, and property from nobles, kings, and devotees. This not only improved their living conditions, but also allowed them to recruit and arm more knights to fulfill their mission. In 1139, Pope Innocent II issued a papal bull called Omni Datum Optimum, in which he granted the Templars certain extraordinary privileges. This bull allowed them to act independently, since they were exempt from paying taxes and answered only to the Pope, without being subject to any other civil or ecclesiastical authority. At a time when all churches and lands were obliged to pay taxes and answer to local kings, this privilege gave the Templars a unique status. The bull also allowed them to build their own churches and manage their own resources, which consolidated their autonomy and made them a powerful and respected order. With the backing of the church and the European nobility, the Templars grew rapidly. They received generous donations of land, money, and goods, both in the Holy Land and in Europe. These donations included vast tracts of land, castles, and estates, which considerably increased the economic and military power of the order. The order built castles, fortresses, and bases throughout Christian territory in the Middle East, especially in strategic locations such as pilgrimage routes, trade routes, and mountain passes. These fortifications served as defense and refuge points for pilgrims, as well as ensuring the Christian presence in the region. During this period, the Templars also developed a sophisticated banking system, one of the first of its kind in history. This system worked as follows. Pilgrims who wanted to travel to the Holy Land left their goods and money in the Templar houses in Europe and received a kind of letter of credit. This document detailed the value deposited, and pilgrims could present this letter at another Templar temple in the Holy Land to withdraw equivalent money. This financial network offered security to pilgrims, preventing them from traveling with large sums of money and being vulnerable to robbery along the way. At the same time, it allowed the Templars to manage large amounts of money and resources, establishing financial foundations that made them lenders to nobles and kings. Thus, the order established itself as a powerful financial force in Europe, and with it, expanded its political and military influence. The order became one of the main military forces in the Crusades, participating in important battles against the Muslims. The Templars were known for their bravery, discipline, and combat training. They wore distinctive white armor adorned with a red cross on the chest and on their cloaks, a symbol of their faith and commitment, making them easily recognizable on the battlefield. The Templars fought with unwavering fervor, as they believed that dying in combat defending the faith would grant them eternal salvation. This dedication and spirit of sacrifice made them a pillar of the Christian forces in the Middle East. The power of the Templars began to weaken with the fall of the Christian possessions in the Holy Land. In 1187, Saladin, the Muslim leader of Egypt and Syria, defeated the Crusaders at the Battle of Hattin and recaptured Jerusalem. This victory of Saladin was a devastating blow to the Crusaders and the Christian military orders, as they lost one of their most sacred cities. Despite the valiant efforts of the Templars and other military orders, such as the Hospitallers, the situation in the Holy Land became increasingly untenable for the Christians. Over the following decades, the Crusaders progressively lost control of almost all of their holdings in the Near East, unable to withstand the constant pressure of Muslim forces. The final blow came in 1291 with the fall of Acre, the last major Christian city in the Holy Land. Acre had been the main stronghold of the Crusaders and the center of operations of the military orders, including the Templars. Its fall marked the end of Christian rule in the region and symbolized the failure of the Crusades to keep the Holy Land under Christian control. With the loss of Acre, the Templars had to withdraw permanently from the Middle East and seek new territories of operation, establishing their bases on the island of Cyprus and in several European countries. This defeat was not only a military and territorial blow, but also profoundly affected the Templars' raison d'être. Its original purpose, which was to protect pilgrims in the Holy Land and fight for holy sites, was rendered practically meaningless. With no longer any Christian possessions in the region, the order found itself without a clear mission. The fall of the Templars occurred quickly and brutally. Philip IV of France, known as Philip the Fair, was an ambitious king and deeply indebted to the Templars due to the loans they had granted him. Looking for a way to get out of his debts and increase his power, Philip decided to act against them. In 1307, Philip accused the Templars of heresy, a serious charge in an age when religion was all-pervasive. The knights were accused of heretical practices, idolatry, sodomy, and idol worship. On Friday, October 13, 1307, Philip ordered the arrest of all the Templars in France, and a persecution broke out throughout Europe. Under torture, some Templars confessed to crimes, but many of these confessions were obtained under harsh interrogation methods. The Church, headed at the time by Pope Clement V, launched an investigation, but it soon became apparent that Philip intended to put an end to the order. In 1312, the Pope officially dissolved the Order of the Templars at the Council of Vienne. The last Grand Master of the Templars, Jacques de Molay, was burned at the stake in 1314 after retracting his confession and proclaiming his innocence. His death marked the symbolic end of the Templars, although their wealth and property had already been confiscated or transferred to other orders and the French crown. Before being executed at the stake, Jacques de Molay launched a famous curse against Pope Clement V and King Philip the Fair of France, who had conspired to destroy the order. According to legend, as it burned, de Molay proclaimed that both the Pope and the King would be called before the tribunal of God within a year to account for their actions. The exact words attributed to him vary, but he is reported to have said something along the lines of, "God will avenge our death. Both Pope Clement and King Philip will appear before the divine tribunal within a year." Pope Clement V died in April 1314, about a month after the execution of Jacques de Molay. Philip the Handsome also died unexpectedly in November of that same year. These consecutive deaths, both in the same year and so soon after the execution of de Molay, were interpreted as divine punishment or the realization of his curse. Despite their dissolution, the Templars left a lasting legacy. Their mysterious fall and the brutality with which they were persecuted fueled many legends and theories about their fortune, their secret knowledge, their possible arrival on the American continent 300 years before Christopher Columbus, and their possible connections with sacred relics, such as the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant. Topics we will cover in future videos. Today, the Templars are remembered as symbols of medieval bravery and mysticism, and their story remains a subject of interest in popular culture. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you want us to cover a specific topic, please write it in the comments. Give this video a like and share it so your family and friends can also learn about the true history of the Knights Templar. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, and don't miss our recommended video at the end. You will enjoy it. Never forget, history is the imitator of time, the repository of actions, the witness of the past, the example and warning of the present, the caution for the future.